Well, let's start with outline, I guess. Oh, there it is. So, regarding withdrawals, we have a new contract that is actually quite a bit simpler than the previous one. So basically, we removed all the complicated functions with like the failure scenarios and whatever, and replaced everything with just these 4 functions. Well, maybe I need to zoom a bit, but whatever. So basically, just like increment some amounts, some local value, some local storage, and doesn't do anything else, right? So it's just a map of which address is out how much tokens, and that's it. And then there's a clan function which you can call to basically, well, get those tokens to your address. So it's really as simple as that. There's no fair scenarios anymore. There's no retries. There's nothing. There's just this basic thing. The only thing is that, well, of course, as mentioned last week, I think, well, their users have to call the claim function. Yeah, so maybe this even has some interesting properties we didn't really.
Well, users or anyone.
Right. Anyone yeah. Anyone. Yeah.
We will do it.
Yeah, we can. Yeah, sure. We can also do it. Yeah. So this is ready. The audit is pending. And as I said, yeah, it's very basic. So at this point, I guess the next to do is to spin up a quick devnet with, if possible, 50-50 Nethermind and Erigon. Make sure that everything works as expected. But I mean, there's no reason for it not to, because it worked before. The contract is tested. The contract is actually way simpler than before. So in theory, everything should be fine. Then a shadow fork of mainnet, of course, just to be safe. Upgrading the contract on Shadow is also necessary, just well to have parity. Even though I guess at this point Shadow is broken forever, at least for the few addresses that have had withdrawals. But it's not really a huge issue. And yeah, and then after that, setting a date. So the question now is, how confident do we feel that all of this will work without any issues, and should we set a date already today? The reasoning behind it is, well, if we have a date, we can actually start doing the releases and whatever, and most client teams will take some time anyways to release new versions, so we have a bit of time between doing the pull request and actually having a release. And if anything goes wrong in the coming week, for example, we can still like revert those changes before having it be in any clients. If any clients do a release in between, then well, we can still revert it, and there's enough time to get a new release before the fork. And this would make things a bit faster, I guess. The issue, of course, is that if something goes wrong, then yeah, it's a bit more complicated. Yeah, go ahead, Marek.
Sorry, date for what? For Shadow or for
mainnets?
Oh, so I would suggest maybe at least one devnet before picking the date with new contract. I don't know what other things about it.
Yeah, so the idea then would be to, well, set a date and then in the coming week do the devnets and finish it for next week. And then next week, if something goes wrong, we can still kind of pump the brakes, and we still have a few weeks left. So anyways, we would pick a date in like 5 or 6 weeks. But just so we have this general idea, and if anything goes wrong in the devnets, then we have still like 4 or 5 weeks left to abort the mission, I guess.
Got it. So date probably without announcing with public or with, I don't know. It's like we're saying that it's not set in the stone. That is what you mean.
Right. Yeah.
Okay. I don't know. I'm okay with that. Ruben, Łukasz.
If you are not going to announce like right away the date, I mean publicly, then I'm okay with it.
Okay, but in this case, then we should probably also not start doing releases then, right? Well, the thing is, this call is public anyways, so that's maybe going to be a bit complicated to keep private.
Yeah, okay.
So do you think we need both a DevNet and a shadow fork? Like, can we just do a shadow fork and should be good to ensure good interop between the clients?
I would prefer both.
Okay. Well, let's do a DevNet and shadow fork then for next week, if that's possible. I guess Carlos is the one who would do that, right?
Yes.
Do you think we can have everything like set up for end of this week, and so we can start for the next core dev call?
So if we're going to start with the DevNet, yes, I suppose we can have the configurations at least. So yeah, I think it'll be ready this week.
Do you need help from Gateway? I mean, also to run some DevNet nodes?
Yeah, the idea, I think, if you are going to run some keys, also if Nodes is gonna have some validator keys, I will need to know so I can create and prepare the mnemonics for it.
Yeah, we
yeah.
can do it like tomorrow, Friday, for example.
I'd say maybe let's keep it simple for the DevNet and just do like if Erigon, if Nethermind runs all the nodes, that I think it's fine. Well, I mean, except if you don't agree, and then for the shadow fork, well, I don't actually know if that works for the keys actually.
Yeah, I would really, really, really prefer for one entity to run all the keys because we always fuck it up. So and we have not catched really bugs out of that. I don't know, or at least that's how we do it usually in Ethereum, and it works fine. Like DevOps takes care of all.
Yeah, no problem.
Okay.
So
yeah,
how does
it's yours.
Yeah, I was thinking of kind of a similar setup like we did in the past DevNet, like 80% of the keys for Nethermind it will be the majority of them, so we can finalize the network without anyone else joining. But yeah.
Like I would say that it has value if some other entity wants to run nodes in a specific way or will test some code paths that will not happen in the way that you run the nodes, then it has value. But if they would run it in the same way that you do, I don't see the point.
Right.
I had a question. Oh yeah, can you make sure to run like 50/50 Erigon and Nethermind?
Yes, for Nethermind will be simple. I will think Erigon custom would need a custom branch, I suppose, or Docker image with the network configuration once I have it. But yeah, I think we can run 50/50 on both clients.
Perfect. And how does it actually work for a mainnet shadow fork, like with the validators and everything?
You shadow fork the execution layer, so the beacon chain is parallel. Right?
Okay. Well, how do you? Well, what's attests then, and all those, or is there like a new beacon chain that? No, that can't work, right?
Oh, right. I'm thinking about, have we done shadow forks of Capella?
Yeah, for Ethereum mainnet, I think they didn't. We weren't reading a bit about this, and what they did was just try to sync the network, and then create a separate beacon chain, and let the execution nodes follow this new beacon chain at some point.
Got it.
Is that? I mean, how much time would that take for Gnosis? Is that something we can do?
I think, yeah, we'll need some nodes to sync Gnosis, and then decide at which point do we want to stop syncing Gnosis mainnet, and then just fork at the point. So yeah, the most complicated part I think would be thinking the network. and stopping the nodes.
Well, and we have, we will have to somehow steal the keys of the contract. So the deposit contract needs to be updated in order for the fork to be successful.
Yes, it can be updated on mainnet or after the fork happens. But yeah, we'll need both.
We can also upgrade it before the fork happens, technically, right?
Yes.
It doesn't break the current. Well, actually, it breaks the deposit UI, so maybe not. Actually, that's also something I need to add here. But then, do we need like a new beacon chain, or how does that work?
Yeah, the problem is that for the fork to happen, so it can activate Chapella without messing up the normal network. We need new beacon nodes with validators keys and stuff. So we cannot have those if we don't create a separate beacon chain.
Okay, and is that something we can? I mean, we have the knowledge to do, or?
I'm not completely sure with the contracts part, but yeah, for the rest, I think it's doable.
Okay.
Yeah, the contract part is key. Like there will need to be some irregular transition. That I think Nethermind supports that. Like you can do funky stuff with the bytecodes and keys, I think, but probably not Erigon.
But can we not just like do because I mean we own the keys, right? Oh well, on the safe. Well, maybe that's a bit complicated.
I mean, you cannot do that. You will get replayed. Like.
Oh yeah, that's true.
So yeah, just to be the way we used to do the shadow forks for the merge is easy because the beacon chain hooks into the execution chain naturally. So it's quite easy to pull off. You just hooked into something else, and then each chain stays separated. But now the trigger is time, so it's not that obvious. And we also need to test this specific smart contract functionality that was not the case in the merge, which complicates things. And Ethereum doesn't need to deal with that because Capella withdrawals happen outside of the EVM.
Okay, so what's the plan then? I mean, how are we going to do this shadow fork, and if so?
Well, we should ask first, what value would the shadow fork provide for us in testing? What questions would it answer or code paths will exercise that DevNet would not? Because it's becoming apparent that it will be a significant effort, so we have to make sure that it makes sense.
So we can do DevNet only, but with huge spamming of transaction, right? Just to not have only empty blocks.
Sure, sounds good.
But I didn't quite get why the shadow fork is a problem.
And that's a good question, to be honest. Because, Lion, did you follow how Ethereum prepare shadow forks? I know a bit, so I can comment on that.
Yeah, please do.
Okay, so what Parry did was stopping EL on some block. So basically, he synced mainnet and stopped all ELs on some block and started new beacon chain. And this new beacon chain has Chapella scheduled, and that is how it works. And it should work in the same way for Gnosis. Not sure if.
Wait, you mean that they stopped the execution chain, then they took that hash, the head hash where they stopped,
yes,
and used that in the Genesis?
Yes.
Okay, that makes sense.
And
Okay, that's doable. The problem is how do we upgrade the deposit contract?
mhm.
I would say after the fork. Like
No,
we
but I
start
mean
the shadow fork.
the
at
deposit
current
contract
state.
in. Sorry.
Yes, go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
No, please. I'll let you finish.
Yeah, I see like we start a shadow fork from the current state, and I'll say after a block or two, we upgrade the deposit contract and start the withdrawals then.
So, Ruben, do you mean that we can shadow fork with merge fork, and before Chapella we can upgrade contract? Yes, that is your point?
Yeah.
Yeah, and to avoid getting replayed, can we then not just do like a multi-call which reverts in the first, like in the first transaction, if the last block is not some specific hash that will only exist in the shadow fork or something like that?
Well, I think you guys mean to actually do the update on mainnet and then do the snapshot for the shadow fork.
I think they want to upgrade the contract after the shadow. I mean, on the shadow fork.
So on fork chain, right?
And how do you prevent replays?
Well, can we not do this a multi-call because it's a safe, right? Can we not do a multi-call that expects the previous block to be a certain hash, for example, and that hash will likely never exist on the actual mainnet?
If you trust those code paths, that's like very sensitive.
True.
Yeah, good point about replay attack here. I'm not sure if shadow fork will bring enough value. The only thing to consider for future is for future forks, shadow fork might bring us value. So not sure. We can test it on devnets, and shadow fork will be useful for 4844, I guess.
Yeah, definitely.
We can also upgrade the contract before doing the fork, and then, I mean, we can get replayed because it's executed already. The only thing that we have to fix at the same time is the deposit UIs, but we can fork it before. Upgrade it before.
What do you mean by UI?
The deposits before expected MGNO. Now the deposit contract expects GNO. So the UIs, so deposit.gnosis.io or gnosischain.com, I don't remember, have to have some code changes. But we have this ready in pull requests. Maybe Gateway has to update theirs, but it should not be too complicated. I mean, it's literally just like one address to change. So as long as we can coordinate around this, when we upgrade on mainnets, we can also do this before the shadow fork. We have to upgrade the contracts before Chapella either way, and the contracts again are tested. And in the worst case, we can still upgrade them again in case something goes wrong. So it's probably not that much of an issue to just upgrade them like now, as long as you can coordinate about the deposit thing. Or what do you think, Lion?
Yeah, that would make sense too.
Well, I think it's not critical whether we update it like before or after the shadow fork.
Yeah, I mean, it's just so we don't get replayed and then something happens that we didn't expect. Well, unless there's a better way to avoid getting replayed, which might also be the case.
All right, so if so, like we can either not have a shadow fork or like upgrade the contract on the mainnet and then shadow fork it. Like another question, like we have to deliver shadow before all of this, right?
Well, shadow is just a basic contract upgrade at this point, so there's not much to change, right? I mean, it's merged, it's hot forked already, so there's nothing to change.
Yeah, so it will work like people are getting withdrawals now on shadow, and at some point they stop getting withdrawals automatically and should do this manually, right? So this is how the UX should look like.
Exactly, yes.
All right, so we can run a DevNet, make sure like the contract works as expected, and if so, then the next step is the upgrading the contract on Shadow, right?
Yeah, so the shadow upgrade we can do this week because it shouldn't change anything, but at least we can test this on testnet then. At the same time, we spin up the DevNet with 50/50 Nethermind Erigon, but most nodes at Nethermind. And then we have until next week to test all of this. And then, yeah, maybe we don't have to do a shadow fork, but I mean, that we still have to decide.
So what we should test is probably full flow of withdrawals, right? So sending later these transactions as well. And I'm not sure if it is worth doing if get logs just to make sure that indexers will work now. What do you think?
So we have scripts that compare the output of like what it should be regarding on, well, no, does that actually work now? I'm not sure.
Yeah, I mean, is there any way to test, first of all, full withdrawal? I mean, that user will send transaction that is claiming withdrawals. And the second thing is that testing what wasn't working for previous approach. Just asking if we should do this and what we can do here.
Yeah, so on Shadow, we have scripts to compare the outputs we get by tailing just the events. Well, I mean, by replaying the GNO transfer events. And we have also a script that outputs the right version, the right values. So the ones including, well, the ones that replay transfer events and also replay withdrawals on top of it. So that we can compare and show that it doesn't work and whatever. And for the new DevNet, we can have some accounts that are used for validators, run a bunch of transactions that go out and in, basically, and then add withdrawals to that and check if we get the right amount at the end, right? That should be enough.
Okay, cool. Will these scripts work on Shadow even if we had before this other approach of withdrawals? It's not the issue?
Well, if we have a new key, then it will work out of the box. If not, we have to do a special condition for the addresses that already had withdrawals.
Okay. Sounds good.
Yeah, so for Shadow, I guess the best option is just to have an exception in the code or something, because spinning up new validators for this is a bit of a waste. So we just have to calculate the total amount of withdrawals that some address received, basically, and check if the final amount is just different from that amount, if that makes sense. But yeah, we can do that internally. So with all of that, do we want a shadow fork or not?
So let's start with the DevNet. That's my opinion.
Yeah, and then we will see, yeah. if it's doable, we'll do. If it like too much headache, probably will not.
Okay. Well, then let's not set a date this week, but let's try to do everything we can so we can set one next week. Does that make sense?
Sure,
It
sure. Quick question: do you think is it possible that contract will change, or do you think it is final version? I mean, new contract.
The new contracts are assumed to be final at least. Well, there's the audit ongoing, but that should only fix maybe security issues. And again, I mean, it's like 10 lines of code. I don't see that there could be an issue, so they are considered final.
Okay.
All right, well, so let's coordinate around this of line. So this is, the to-do. Do you have, so Marcus, I guess, updates regarding Hive tests?
Yes, we added more tests to the previous suites that we already have. We ran them on the Nethermind repository GitHub Actions to see that everything was working on, and it was the case. And we started to add Erigon to that to run Erigon with the Hive test. I already in touch with Andrew to solve the small issues that are arising, but should be doable soon. Okay, that's all of me. Go back to you, Philippe.
Thank you. Nethermind, do you have updates regarding, your clients that are not related to DevNets, testnets, or whatever, or Hive tests, I guess?
Well, generally, we are working on a Chapella readiness list that the appliance shared on HackMD. Some of the items are delivered and the list is updated, and we'll continue working on DevNets and testing the new contract. I will take a look at it after the code. No any other updates.
Awesome. Erigon?
No updates.
Good. And I don't think Guillaume is here. No. All right. Gateway.
Yeah, not too much to say. We fixed the launchpad, and that's it for the sync.
Okay, so is that was it broken or is that
Yeah,
related
it just
to the...
became broken. Yeah, so we fixed it. You wrote it.
Yeah. Awesome. And then we'll have to coordinate around updating this for the GNO instead of NGNO deposits, but it's really just updating one address, so it's going to be
so
fine.
just ping in the Telegram chat. And...
Yeah, we already had something going on. All right. Was there something, because last week I wasn't that available, was there something else we had to talk about?
No.
All right. Well, okay, let's start with the DevNet now then, and I'll see with our DevOps to upgrade the shadow contracts. So we'll have the shadow upgrade done for this week, and the DevNet spun up for this week as well, if possible. So Carlos, keep us updated for this so we can start. Lucas.
I have one question. So the new contract would have even less gas, right?
Yes.
Requirements. Okay, so there's no problem from this side.
Yeah, well, actually, it will basically not consume anything at this point because there is not even an ERC20 transaction or whatever. It's just incrementing some storage. That's it.
That's even better.
It does consume. It's an store
per
withdraw.
Of course, but way less than half it did before, right?
So with this said, do we want to
Sorry. Go ahead.
Do we want to consider increasing the withdrawals number or keeping it as is now?
I think we can keep it because at this point we already go over the entire list once every 17 or 18 hours, so that should be enough. And we can still upgrade it later if you want to, right? It's or maybe not that easily.
I would stick to the parameters.
Yeah, I think that's fine. Marek?
All right.
So one quick question. So if everything goes well, we will expect hard fork in 5-6 weeks, right? Is that
Yeah. Well, if the 5-6 weeks was including DevNet, so next week it will be 4 or 5 weeks additional.
Okay, yeah, got it. Yeah, just to make sure what timelines we will have for releases, etc. Thank you.
Yeah. So we kind of had this idea to maybe try to do this at ECC, because it would be like a good PR, I guess, and we kind of need this right now for Gnosis Chain. But that might be a bit tight and maybe not worth it. But yeah, maybe an idea to keep in mind, because it could be very interesting. But we can talk about this next week.
Sounds doable.
Awesome.
Yeah, would you guys be at ECC, Nethermind or Erigon?
I expect someone from Nethermind would be, but I myself.
Thomas will be there, and quite.
I barely understand you, Roch.
Yeah, same.
Yes, sorry about that. I just said there's going to be quite a large number of people from Nethermind, the event. Thomas, our CEO, will be there, but I'm not sure if anybody from the core team specifically.
Okay. So a lot of Nethermind guys, but maybe not the core team.
Okay.
Giacomo?
Yeah. Just regarding the date for the hard fork. So we said that next week we should be able to pick the date, right?
Right.
And this should happen in 4 to 6 weeks after next week. Just to before picking the date, we should make sure that for the date we are picking, most of the people and teams are available, since we are gonna go into summer holidays. So we should avoid situations where there are not enough people to attend the fork. So we should consider that. So perhaps a poll in the Telegram channel could be a good idea with potential dates.
Yeah, makes sense. All right. Anything else? I guess not. Well, then, yeah, Carlos, keep us up to date. And Giacomo, I think I'll have to contact you anyways for the Shadow upgrades. And see you next week.
Thank you, guys. Bye.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, guys. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.